Life did not stop because Victor was gone. The following days brought something the construction site had almost forgotten: peace. Materials were accounted for. Workers trusted one another again, and Tomas could finally concentrate on earning an honest living. He had entered this company desperate for work. Now he stood there as a man Gabriel trusted. Tomas thought perhaps this was where his story would finally settle. But sometimes God closes one chapter just before another begins. Tomas had not spoken to his distant uncle in a long time. So when the call came from Nueva Ecija, he expected only sad news. His uncle had passed away. But before the call ended, Tomas learned something he never expected. His uncle had left him a piece of land. It was not a fortune. It was not a beautiful house. It was not the answer to every problem. It was simply land. But to a man who had spent much of his life wondering where his family belonged, it felt like a door. Years earlier, Tomas would have made the decision immediately. A piece of land? A chance to start again? He would have packed before asking another question. But Tomas was no longer the same man. Poverty had taught him to survive. Temptation had taught him the price of integrity. Fear had taught him how little he could control. And surrender had taught him what to do when he did not know the answer. So before Tomas made a decision, the family prayed. They did not ask God to make them rich. They did not ask for an easy life. They simply asked God to guide them if this was truly where their next chapter should begin. Tomas had learned an important lesson. Do not only ask God to bless your plans, ask God to guide them. Gabriel could have offered Tomas more money to stay. He could have reminded him of the opportunities ahead. But Gabriel understood something leadership had taught him. Sometimes, helping someone grow means allowing them to leave. The frightened man who once came asking for work was no longer standing before him. Tomas had changed, not because life had become easy, but because hardship had taught him who he wanted to become. Gabriel had given Tomas an opportunity, but Tomas had given Gabriel something too, a reminder that honest men still existed. Some people enter our lives for a season, but what they teach us can last forever. As Tomas packed, he found reminders of the life they were leaving behind. There had been days when food was uncertain, nights when worry refused to let him sleep, moments when dishonest money seemed easier than an honest struggle, times when fear almost convinced him to run away. Tomas once prayed for God to remove every problem, but looking back, he realized God had sometimes answered differently. Some problems disappeared. Others, Tomas had been given the strength to walk through. Because sometimes faith does not change the road. Sometimes faith changes the person walking on it. When they finally arrived in Nueva Ecija, reality looked very different from the dream. There was no beautiful house waiting for them, no successful farm, no pile of money, just overgrown land and a lot of work. Years earlier, Tomas might have seen everything that was missing, but now he saw what could be built. God had not handed Tomas a finished future. He had been given a place to begin one. An opportunity does not remove the work. It gives the work somewhere to begin. Years ago, Tomas looked at his little boy and made a promise. Daniel would have a better life. Back then, Tomas thought he knew what that meant. More money, better clothes, a better house, enough food, and a future without poverty. Those things mattered, but they were not the whole promise. A father leaves his children more than possessions. He leaves them an example. Tomas could teach Daniel to chase money or to value honesty. He could teach him to fear hardship or to face it with faith. He could answer pain with anger or show him forgiveness. He could give Daniel property, but more importantly, he could give him roots. Tomas finally understood. The promise was never simply, "I will make you rich." It was, "Son, I will do everything I can to give you a better beginning than the one I had." Tomas never became the richest man in Nueva Ecija. His problems did not simply disappear. That was never the promise. The promise was to give Daniel something Tomas once struggled to find: a present father, an honest home, a praying family, and faith strong enough for difficult days. Tomas had learned that money could disappear. Jobs could end. People could disappoint us. Plans could change. But God remained. And as Scripture reminds us, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. Proverbs 16:3. Tomas looked at Maria, then Daniel, and toward the new life ahead. His promise was no longer just words. They were standing at its beginning. And their story isn't over. See you in Season 2, as the promise of Daniel continues.